It was a dreary Thursday when Liam swiped into the lab. He'd barely shrugged into his white coat before Emily from the adjacent bay called out to him, gesturing towards a high shelf. She needed help reaching the agar, her smile bright. Liam sighed theatrically, remarking that he couldn't even get both feet in the door before being put to work, but he reached up and retrieved the containers for her anyway. He asked if she was preparing culture media. She confirmed, lamenting that she'd barely had a bite of her breakfast bagel before having to build homes for her fungi. She then reminded him about her birthday party that night, adding that the address was in his texts and he'd better not be late. Liam joked that he was counting on her party for his first real meal in 3 days. Emily feigned a swing at his shoulder, calling him a smartass. Liam sidestepped smoothly, placing the agar, peptone, and glucose on her counter. He told her that should be everything for the fungal media and she should get to it. Emily, momentarily surprised by his efficiency, thanked him. He just waved a hand and walked toward his own workstation. He passed several colleagues, exchanging smiles and greetings. Liam, of mixed Irish and Japanese heritage, possessed a striking combination of features: deep-set eyes, sharp cheekbones, and a tall, lean frame that made the standard-issue white lab coat look like a deliberate fashion choice. He stood out effortlessly. He was a first-year Ph.D. student at a prestigious university in Boston, and their genetics institute was the crown jewel of the campus. It was a melting pot of brilliant minds from around the globe, yet while most people stuck to their own small cliques, Liam moved between them with an easy grace that made him universally liked. Approaching his bench, he found the twins, Leo and Maya, watching him with knowing smirks. They were undergraduate interns from California. Leo, with his shoulder-length hair and quiet demeanor, rarely spoke. Maya, with her sharp bob and even sharper tongue, made up for his silence. She immediately commented on how often Emily seemed to need his help with things just out of her reach, a tactic Leo dryly labeled as a strategic siege. Maya added that everyone knew the male postdoc in Emily's group was constantly trying to win her over, only to be shot down every time. Leo supplied the term preferential treatment. Their back and forth was like a well-rehearsed comedy routine. Liam, adjusting the focus on his microscope, explained that he couldn't very well refuse a simple request to grab something. He added that Emily had every right to turn down unwanted advances and that he saw nothing wrong with it. Maya, however, was relentless. She pointed out that it was Emily's birthday, and if she had feelings for him, he should consider what kind of gift he was planning to give. Her voice trailed off abruptly. Liam looked up. The twins' expressions had turned strange. Following their gaze, he saw Julian Hale. Julian wore a simple light-colored button-down shirt. He stood at a polite, calculated distance from Emily, his expression neutral as they spoke. Liam could just make out Emily asking if he would come to her party. Julian shook his head, and though Liam couldn't hear the words, he could read the brief, polite happy birthday on his lips. Maya's face was a mixture of awe and pity. She whispered that Emily was a true warrior for even daring to invite him. She had never seen Julian eat lunch with anyone, let alone attend a party. Liam cut her off, telling them both to mind their own business. He assigned them tasks: Maya to put reagents back in the fridge, Leo to retrieve a flask from the shaker, and they scrambled to obey. Liam let out a quiet breath. Most people saw him as a social butterfly, effortlessly charming his peers, mentors, and a steady stream of admirers. Popularity was never a concern. But they didn't know about the one persistent thorn in his side: Julian Hale. Julian had joined the lab a few months ago, sparking a wave of hushed gossip. First, there was his appearance. A cool, almost ethereal beauty that momentarily stopped the hearts of anyone who looked at him. Then there was his resume. At 27, just 2 years older than Liam, he was already a postdoc, recruited personally by their lab director, Dr. Jonathan Miller, after a lengthy pursuit. He had a string of high-impact publications to his name and had reportedly turned down offers from top research institutes and pharma companies. Rumor had it Jonathan had to agree to several unusual conditions to get him to stay. Soon, the gossip shifted from his achievements to his personality. He was beyond reserved. He was a ghost. He would arrive at the lab when it was emptiest and leave without a word. He refused all invitations to happy hour, departmental mixers, or group lunches, preferring to eat alone in some secluded corner. He was so aloof, so mysterious, that for the first week, the entire lab operated under a collective, unspoken agreement to watch his every move. Maya had speculated wildly that perhaps he had a stutter or crippling social anxiety. But Julian shattered those rumors at his first lab meeting. His presentation was flawless, his voice cool and clear, his English impeccable. His scientific knowledge was terrifyingly deep. He answered Jonathan's most pointed questions with unnerving calm. Liam had been blown away. Coincidentally, Julian's research area was closely related to Liam's own. He saw the potential for a powerful collaboration. After the meeting, as people were filing out, Liam approached him. He introduced himself cheerfully, complimenting Julian's talk. At that moment, Julian was looking at his phone. Liam caught a glimpse of the screen, a weather app with its pale blue background of clouds and sun. The instant Liam spoke, Julian locked the screen and looked up. His eyes met Liam's, then drifted down, lingering for a fraction of a second on Liam's chest before returning to his face. The glance was odd, unsettling. Liam instinctively looked down at his own shirt. It was a plain Oxford, the top 2 buttons undone against the stuffy conference room heat. Nothing was amiss. He couldn't understand the strange look. Then Julian spoke. He said that Jonathan had mentioned him. Encouraged, Liam pressed on, suggesting that since their research interests overlapped, they should talk more and perhaps collaborate in the future. Liam was unaware that his smile was a frequent topic of discussion among his lab mates, who had deemed it his secret weapon. His eyes, a warm brown inherited from his Irish father, seemed to light up when he smiled, making it nearly impossible to say no to him. Julian, however, was immune. He replied with a swift, unequivocal apology, stating that he didn't like to collaborate. The rejection was so fast, so devoid of hesitation, that it stunned Liam into silence. For a moment, he could only manage a choked, "Oh, right. No need to apologize." Later, Liam rationalized that he had been too forward. Some brilliant people were just lone wolves. He figured Julian simply needed time to open up. So a month ago, for his own birthday, Liam had tried again, inviting Julian to his party. The answer was the same: an apology, followed by the claim that he wasn't free. Liam, undeterred, had pointed out with a slight smile that he hadn't even mentioned which day the party was. Julian paused. Liam told him it was that Saturday evening at a bar nearby, adding that he wouldn't force him to come, but the invitation was open. He saw Julian give a slight nod. For some reason, Liam was convinced he would show up. He was wrong. The party raged until 2 in the morning, but Julian never appeared. Liam admitted to himself that he was more than a little angry. At least Emily, despite her rejection today, had gotten a happy birthday. A month ago, Liam hadn't even received an explanation. It wasn't just the broken promise. It was the realization that Julian was actively, consciously isolating himself. He wasn't just shy. He was proudly, perhaps arrogantly, alone. Liam felt foolish for his efforts. From that day on, he made no further attempts to speak to Julian. Maya's voice broke his reverie. She was asking him again what he was getting Emily for her birthday. Liam shook himself back to the present, taking off his lab coat. He said he'd figure it out at the mall. A group from the lab had planned to go gift shopping together after 3. Before leaving, Liam glanced back one last time. He saw Julian, sitting at the sterile bench, looking out the window at the sky. He saw Julian's brow furrow. The sky, already overcast, seemed to have grown darker. The fluorescent lights cast a pale, almost sickly glow on Julian's profile. For a split second, Liam thought he saw a faint flush of red on the tips of Julian's ears. It was an unsettling, fragile look. Leo poked his head in the door, announcing their Uber was arriving. Liam took a step, then hesitated, looking back again. But Julian had already returned his focus to his work, seemingly fine. It must have been a trick of the light, Liam thought, turning to leave. The group ended up at a popular bar in Cambridge. A few drinks in, a cake appeared. Surrounded by her friends, Emily made a wish before blowing out the candles. She wished for clean experimental results, no contamination, and a paper published by the end of the year. Then, with a playful smile, she added that a little romantic surprise wouldn't hurt either, her eyes landing squarely on Liam. Her friends erupted in whoops and hollers. Maya, who had just taken a sip of her beer, sputtered, whispering furiously in Liam's ear that she told him so. Liam knew there was no good way to respond. He excused himself, saying he needed to use the restroom and check on their food order. When he returned, the party was winding down, most people pleasantly buzzed. The next day was Friday, after all. As they stumbled out of the bar, a wall of sound and water hit them. What had been a gloomy evening had turned into a torrential downpour. Thunder cracked overhead, and wind whipped the rain into horizontal sheets. The women, dressed in party dresses for the early spring weather, shivered in the sudden cold. Maya was incredulous, stating that the forecast had only called for overcast skies, not a full-blown monsoon. Liam sighed at their predicament. He told the women to wait inside while he and Leo went to find a cab. As he opened his umbrella, he looked up at the churning black sky. It had been a long time since he'd seen a storm this violent. The combination of cold wind and alcohol was making his head spin. He started mentally planning his experiments for the next day, remembering that he'd already prepared the necessary reagents and his nematode worms were at the right life stage. Then a sudden, sharp thought sobered him up. He turned to Leo, asking if he remembered which incubator he had put the worms in, the 20-degree or the 25-degree one. Leo had no idea. The temperature difference was critical. At 25 degrees, the worms would develop too quickly, overshooting the precise stage he needed for his experiment. The entire week's plan would be ruined. He cursed under his breath. He told Leo to stay with the others and make sure everyone got home safely. He had to go back to the lab. Leo protested, offering his and Maya's worms, but Liam knew theirs were too old. Rubbing his temples, he said he had to go, asking Leo to wish Emily a happy birthday for him again. His research dictated his life, not the other way around. And so, at 1 a.m, Liam found himself rushing back to the lab through the storm. He was surprised to find the lights still on. He figured it was just some other overzealous grad student pulling an all-nighter. But when he pushed open the door to the temperature-controlled incubator room and saw a figure crumpled on the floor, the last vestiges of his drunken haze evaporated. His heart hammered against his ribs as headlines of academic burnout and sudden death flashed through his mind. He rushed forward, kneeling to help the person up. He was relieved to see they were conscious. Then he saw the face, and a second jolt went through him. It was Julian. He was awake, but barely. His breathing was ragged. His face flushed a deep, feverish red. For a moment, Liam wondered if he was the one who was still drunk. Julian looked terribly wrong. His cheeks were crimson, but his lips were pale. His hair was damp with sweat. Liam shook off his shock, his hands firm on Julian's shoulders. He asked what was wrong, if he should call an ambulance. After a long moment, Julian's weak voice came out. He said no. He pointed a trembling finger toward a rack of petri dishes, asking Liam to please put his cultures in the 20-degree incubator on the third shelf. The incubator was only a few feet away. The fact that Julian needed help meant he couldn't even stand. Anyone else might have found the request absurd. The man was clearly in medical distress, yet was worried about his experiments. But Liam understood completely. He knew how much time and effort were contained in those small plastic dishes. He quickly put the plates away. When he turned back, Julian was curled in a corner, his face buried in his arms, his shoulders shaking with each labored breath. Liam abandoned all sense of professional distance and pressed his hand to Julian's forehead. It was burning hot. The coolness of Liam's palm seemed to startle Julian, who flinched at the touch. He looked up, his eyes barely open, and asked if it was still raining outside. Liam, confused by the question, confirmed that it was. He insisted that Julian was burning up and he was taking him to the hospital. At the confirmation of rain, Julian's brow furrowed, and he closed his eyes again, shaking his head. He said his phone was dead and asked Liam to call him a car to his apartment, giving him the address. Liam wanted to argue for the hospital, but Julian's expression was so resolute that he relented. When the car arrived, Julian tried to stand, leaning against the wall, but his legs gave out. As he started to fall, Liam instinctively wrapped an arm around his waist to steady him. He felt Julian's body tense up. He was thinner than he looked, the line of his waist narrow and taut. Julian's full weight pressed against him, but he was surprisingly light. Liam helped him down the stairs and into the waiting car. Julian immediately, weakly, tried to pull away, thanking him and saying he could take it from there. His stubborn insistence on maintaining distance, even when he could barely stand, was both infuriating and comical to Liam. He loosened his grip slightly, and Julian, as expected, immediately lost his balance. Liam caught him again, asking if he was sure. Julian finally fell silent. During the short ride, the rain hammered against the windows. Julian grew quieter, his head lolling against the seat. The sound of his hot, ragged breathing next to Liam was the only proof he hadn't passed out. Liam's mind raced. What could cause a fever this high, this sudden? All he'd wanted was to check on his worms, and now he was escorting his barely conscious, enigmatic colleague home. A colleague who had snubbed him, refused to work with him, and bailed on his birthday. By the time they reached Julian's apartment, he was almost completely limp. Liam took the keys and opened the door. The living room was dark and starkly minimalist, exactly the style Liam would have expected. But when he helped Julian into the bedroom and turned on a light, he froze. It wasn't the decor. It was the inhabitants. Every available surface, the bed, the chairs, the windowsill, was covered in plush toys. Huge ones. A life-size teddy bear slumped in an armchair. A row of grinning dinosaurs lined the window. And dominating the bed was a massive, 6-foot-tall, floppy-eared rabbit, its fur a soft, cherry blossom pink. Liam could not reconcile the scene with the man. If he hadn't known better, he would have assumed Julian had a young daughter. Julian, ignoring Liam's stunned silence, mumbled for him to leave. He wasn't looking at Liam. He was curled up on the bed, burying his face in the rabbit's giant, soft ear. He thanked him for the ride and told him he should go. Liam forced his gaze away from the menagerie of stuffed animals and back to the very real problem in front of him. He took a deep breath. He said he would love to leave, but if Julian was found dead in his apartment tomorrow, he'd be the first person the police questioned, and he had experiments to run and data to analyze. He presented two options. 1. Julian tells him where the fever reducers are, and the moment his fever breaks, Liam is gone. 2. Liam leaves now, but he calls an ambulance on his way out. Julian could choose. His tone was harsh. Julian stiffened but didn't respond. Seeing that the man was determined to be difficult, Liam nodded, pulled out his phone, and started searching for the nearest ER. The next thing he knew, a hand shot out and grabbed the collar of his shirt, yanking him forward. He stumbled, catching himself before he fell on top of Julian. They were face to face, inches apart. He heard Julian's ragged whisper, telling him no hospital. Only a small bedside lamp was on, casting a warm orange glow. The light softened the sharp lines of Julian's face, his eyelashes casting long shadows on his flushed skin. On the way over, Liam had taken off Julian's glasses so he wouldn't fall, and this was the first time he'd seen him so close without them. He looked different, less severe. The fever had brought a disarming vulnerability to his features. His eyes were red-rimmed and clouded with moisture, as if he were holding back tears. Julian repeated his plea, his voice raspy. The proximity was overwhelming. Liam's mind went blank, but he forced himself to hold Julian's gaze. He said fine, no hospital, but Julian had to tell him where the medicine was. Julian's grip on his shirt was surprisingly weak, more of a desperate clutch than a forceful hold. As his strength failed him, his hand slid down, coming to rest on Liam's chest. Liam saw Julian freeze. His gaze dropped from Liam's face, down to where his hand rested. Then Julian murmured something, so soft, Liam didn't register it at first. Julian, staring at Liam's chest as if in a trance, continued to speak to himself. He said it looked soft and it felt even better. And it was warm. Liam followed his gaze down to the hand on his own chest, and his brain short-circuited. Julian was talking about his pecs. It was true that Liam's physique often drew attention. At 6'3", he was already imposing. Years of swimming and regular gym sessions had given him a broad-shouldered, athletic build that even a loose hoodie couldn't completely hide. He didn't work out for aesthetics. It was a way to de-stress from the pressures of academia. But he had never, ever had someone describe his muscles as nice to touch with such raw, unfiltered honesty. A hot flush crept up his neck. He coughed, trying to maintain composure, and mumbled something about it being just okay, pressing again for the location of the medicine. Julian didn't answer. His hand remained on Liam's chest, his palm a warm weight against the thin fabric of his shirt. A thought struck Liam. On the car ride over, Julian had avoided his gaze and recoiled from his touch. Liam had assumed it was just his typical aloofness. Now he realized it wasn't rejection. It was restraint. In the next second, before Liam could process it, Julian shifted, pushing him back against the headboard and climbing onto his lap. Liam was too stunned to react. He found himself pinned, Julian straddling him, one hand still on his chest, the other now resting on his abdomen. Julian's voice was a low rasp. "Don't move." He watched as Julian lowered his gaze, his fingers tracing the outline of the muscle through his shirt, as if assessing its texture. Seemingly satisfied, Julian took a deep breath, wrapped his arms around Liam's waist, and buried his face in his chest. No one had ever held him like this. He'd been on a few dates in college, but they'd all ended the same way, with the other person saying he was too busy, more committed to his worms than to a relationship. He'd never been held so possessively by anyone, let alone a man, let alone Julian Hale on a bed, surrounded by an army of plush toys. The intimate contact, the heat of Julian's body, his breath against Liam's skin, was an unprecedented sensory overload. What are you doing?" Liam stammered. Julian's voice was muffled against his shirt. "You said you'd help me." He shifted slightly, commanding him not to move or speak. The tone was so matter-of-fact that for a second, Liam almost obeyed. Then his brain caught up. Helping him meant getting him medicine, not becoming a human teddy bear. He tried to protest, but Julian ignored him, nuzzling against his chest to find a more comfortable position. Liam could have easily pushed him off, but a strange thing was happening. He could feel the rapid, frantic rhythm of Julian's breathing begin to slow, becoming more even. The desperate tension in his body seemed to melt away. After a few more minutes, Liam cautiously looked down. Julian's brow was smooth, his body limp and relaxed in his arms. He had fallen asleep. Liam tried calling his name, first formally, then just Julian. He got a soft, discontented hum in response as Julian burrowed deeper. He tried to pry his arms away, but Julian only tightened his grip, wrapping his arms more securely around Liam's waist. Exhausted, Liam gave up and sank back against the headboard. The high fever seemed to be receding, the unhealthy flush on Julian's face fading. It made no sense, but Liam was too tired to analyze the absurdity of it all. He'd had a long day, too much to drink, and now he had a warm body curled up against him. The rhythmic sound of the rain outside was a steady lullaby. He told himself he would just rest his eyes for a minute. He woke to blinding sunlight. For a moment, disoriented, he stared at the giant pink rabbit beside him, then at the row of grinning dinosaurs. This wasn't his room. Panic surged, and he shot out of bed, rushing out of the room. He stopped dead in the doorway of the kitchen. Julian was at the stove, wearing an apron, calmly flipping an omelet. He looked completely healthy, composed, and utterly unaware of the chaos of the previous night. It was so surreal Liam wondered if he had dreamed the whole thing. Julian heard him and turned. His expression didn't change. He simply informed Liam that there were disposable toiletries in the bathroom. After splashing his face with cold water 3 times, Liam had organized his thoughts and was ready for a confrontation. But when he returned to the living area, Julian was setting 2 plates on the table. He looked at Liam and asked if he wanted pepper on his eggs. Liam, who had been about to demand an explanation, was derailed by the fragrant aroma of perfectly cooked food. The omelet was golden brown, filled with red peppers and mushrooms. He found himself saying he'd have a little. The first bite was a revelation. It was better than any brunch spot in Boston. As he ate, he didn't notice Julian watching him, his eyes fixed on Liam's forearm as he lifted his fork. Julian asked if he was of mixed heritage. Liam confirmed. Then Julian inquired about his workout frequency. Liam said 2 or 3 times a week. After a pause, Julian asked if he used steroids. Liam was taken aback. He immediately denied it, explaining that while his gym frequency wasn't high, he was active in other ways. Julian apologized, saying he'd just been asked that before. As Liam took the last bite of his omelet, Julian spoke again. He told him he shouldn't increase his training volume. The current texture, he said, was just right. Liam nearly choked. He had met people from all over the world, but he had never met anyone like Julian, who could so calmly and clinically compliment another person's texture. From "I don't like to collaborate" to "so soft," Liam was beginning to realize that Julian, for all his aloofness, was an incredibly direct person. This was not a normal senior-junior colleague interaction. He put down his fork, the meal forgotten. He told Julian he needed an explanation for last night. Julian nodded. He said he was fine now and thanked Liam for bringing him home. Liam pressed, saying there was no way he could be fine after the state he was in. Before he could continue, Julian changed the subject. He said he'd read Liam's most recent paper and thought that if they were willing to collaborate, they could produce something with very high impact. Liam's mind reeled. He reminded Julian that he had already proposed a collaboration, which Julian had flatly rejected. Julian acknowledged this without a hint of embarrassment. He said it was true. He didn't like or need to collaborate with others. The arrogance was breathtaking, but Julian had the credentials to back it up, which made his current offer all the more bizarre. Liam asked why he had changed his mind. He saw a rare flicker of hesitation on Julian's face. After a long moment, Julian said that what he was about to say, Liam had the right to believe or not. He had a condition, one that science couldn't currently explain. He called it weather-sensitive syndrome. Light rain made him drowsy and unable to concentrate. Moderate rain brought on cognitive fog. Heavy rain and thunderstorms, like last night, induced a high fever and delirium. No doctor had found a cause, and no conventional medication worked. There was, he continued, only one thing that mitigated the symptoms. He explained that, on a physical level, he required direct contact with soft, warm objects. On a psychological level, he needed to feel a sense of warmth and dependence during the rain. The plush toys in his bedroom, he told Liam, were how he had managed every rainy day until last night. The pieces clicked into place with a horrifying, nonsensical clarity. Julian said that the forecast hadn't predicted the storm, and his experiment couldn't be delayed. He never expected someone else to be in the lab at that hour. So Julian concluded, looking directly at Liam, "You're the only one who knows my secret. You work in the lab." And his gaze drifted down Liam's body for a moment. "Your physique has all the necessary characteristics. I think you're a suitable candidate." Liam's throat went dry. He knew what was coming next. Julian said he could collaborate on the project Liam had proposed. But from now on, during light rain, Liam would need to hold his hand. During moderate rain, they would need to embrace. And during thunderstorms, they would have to sleep together. He asked if that would be acceptable. The silence in the room was absolute. When Liam didn't answer, Julian added that he would even let Liam take the lead on the project's direction. "Enough," Liam said, his voice a hoarse whisper. He had a flash of insight. This was all a lie. Julian had a simple fever. He had been found by a helpful colleague. He had accidentally discovered Liam's physique and liked it. And now, he was using his academic prestige as bait to lure Liam into a bizarre physical relationship. For a moment, the fact that Julian had recovered so quickly gave him pause. But he pushed the thought away. He was too angry, too insulted. He told Julian he admired his work and had genuinely wanted to learn from him. But knowledge, he said through gritted teeth, was not a currency for transactions. He could accept that people had desires, even strange fetishes with stuffed animals. He wouldn't judge him for that. But Julian shouldn't have fabricated such an absurd, illogical story to manipulate him, as if he were an idiot. This time, it was Julian who looked confused. Liam's anger grew with his disappointment. He stood up abruptly. He said he was leaving, and that Julian should see a doctor for his fever. Thanking him for breakfast, he added that while the terms of his offer were flattering, their values were clearly incompatible. He looked Julian straight in the eye, the tips of his ears burning red with a mixture of shame and fury. "So that kind of deal you're proposing," he said, his voice firm. "I will never, ever agree to it." A week later, Liam was staring out the window, lost in thought, when Maya's voice snapped him out of it. She was complaining that she couldn't tell the difference between two nematode worms under her microscope. She followed his gaze out the window, asking what was so fascinating about another gray Boston day. Liam looked away, saying it was nothing. He glanced into her microscope and identified the life stages for her, pointing out the subtle anatomical marker. The absurd morning with Julian felt like a fever dream. Life had returned to normal. He saw Julian in the lab, talking to Jonathan, or more often, sitting alone at his bench. They never spoke. When they passed in the hall, Julian's gaze slid past him as if he were a stranger. It was for the best. Logic told him he shouldn't waste another thought on someone who would propose such a thing. And yet, this was Julian Hale, the wunderkind who published in top-tier journals for fun. Why would someone of his caliber invent such a preposterous lie? His thoughts were interrupted by Leo asking if he should go pick up a new shipment of reagents from the first-floor stockroom. Liam, glad for the distraction, said he would go. In the elevator, he ran into Mike from the lab next door. They were gym buddies. Mike looked exhausted. He preemptively explained that he'd pulled an all-nighter for an imaging experiment, only to get yelled at by his boss for the poor quality of the photos. Liam advised him to get some rest. Mike waved it off, saying he wasn't the hardest worker around. He mentioned Julian, saying that guy was on another level. But unlike Mike, who stayed late, Julian often came in late. Mike said he'd seen him arrive at the lab in the middle of the night on several occasions. Liam froze. He asked Mike if he remembered if it was raining on those nights. The question was odd, and Mike couldn't recall, shrugging that rain in Boston was hardly a rare event. But he did add that everyone was curious about Julian. He'd heard that Jonathan had agreed to several crazy demands to hire him: total freedom over his schedule, no teaching duties, no mandatory meetings. The elevator doors opened, and Mike left, lamenting his fate. Liam stood alone, his mind racing. Could it be possible that Julian avoided the lab during the day because of the rain? He shook his head. "You're not seriously starting to believe that nonsense, are you?" he muttered to himself. He forced the thoughts away and went to the stockroom. As he was checking his list, his phone buzzed with a storm of notifications from their group chat. Maya was in a panic. She was trapped in the break room with Brad, a former Ph.D. student from their lab who had transferred to a different group. Brad was condescending and insecure, and had made Maya's first month in the lab a living hell by assigning her menial tasks while claiming it was for her own good. Liam had eventually intervened, forcing Brad to pay Maya back for all the lunches he'd made her buy and taking both twins under his own wing. The encounter had left a cloud of awkwardness that lingered whenever they crossed paths. Liam felt a surge of protective anger. He dropped the boxes and ran toward the break room. Through the glass door, he could see Maya with her back to him, her shoulders shaking. He assumed she was crying. But as he got closer, he saw she was trying to stifle laughter. Across from her, Brad's face was a mask of thunderous fury, and sitting between them, calmly sipping a coffee, was Julian. Later, Maya recounted the whole story. Brad had cornered her, making condescending remarks about her progress and insinuating that working with Liam would hurt her career. Just as she was about to snap, Julian had walked in. He sat down between them, effectively creating a barrier. He had then calmly and methodically dismantled the reputation of the very journal Brad had just proudly announced he was published in, calling it a borderline predatory journal with a dubious future. He'd framed it as advice for Maya, never once addressing Brad directly, but every word was a precision strike against Brad's ego. Just as Brad was about to explode, Liam had burst in. Julian had looked up, met his eyes for a fraction of a second, then stood and walked out, brushing past Liam without a word. Brad had fled a moment later. Maya was still buzzing. She couldn't figure out if Julian had deliberately helped her or if he was just completely oblivious. Liam, however, could only think about that brief, loaded glance. He excused himself and went to find Julian. He found him waiting for the elevator. Outside, the sky had turned a dark, bruised purple. A storm was coming. The elevator arrived, and Julian stepped inside. Liam hesitated, then followed him in. The silence was thick. Finally, Liam broke it, thanking him for helping Maya. Julian replied without looking at him that he was just repaying a favor to another colleague who had asked him to check on her. Then he cut Liam off, his voice flat. He said he hoped they could minimize their interactions in the future. Liam was stunned. The elevator descended. Just as the doors opened on the ground floor, Julian sighed and finally turned to face him. He explained, with that same unnerving frankness, that the tactile memory of that night was too strong. He was worried it had raised his tolerance threshold, and that his plush toys would no longer be as effective. Therefore, not seeing Liam would be easier for him. Liam finally found his voice. He argued that it was impossible to believe his story. A fever was an immune response triggered by a pathogen, not by water falling from the sky. Julian simply reminded him that he had prefaced his explanation by stating it was not scientifically explainable. Liam demanded to know why he should believe such a lie. Julian asked, with genuine curiosity, what reason he would have to lie. What would be his motive? Liam was stumped. The story was absurd, but Julian's rapid recovery that morning remained the one inexplicable data point. He stammered, mentioning how Julian had touched him and talked about his texture, then proposed a quid pro quo the next morning. It was hard not to draw certain conclusions. A flicker of understanding crossed Julian's face. "I see," he said. "So you believe I feigned a sickness and am now using academic achievement as leverage for long-term sexual harassment." Liam denied it, but his flustered state betrayed him. "This is easily settled." Then Julian said, stepping out of the elevator into the building's back entryway. He asked if Liam had any experiments to run that afternoon. When Liam said no, Julian asked him to wait with him. He sat down on the steps. Confused and annoyed, Liam demanded to know what they were waiting for. "For the evidence," Julian replied. A few minutes later, it began. A fine, misty drizzle. Liam suddenly understood. Julian stood up and walked over to him. "Look at me," he said, taking off his glasses. Liam's breath caught. Up close, without his glasses, Julian's eyes were startlingly beautiful. The irises a deep, quiet gray. But that wasn't what made Liam speechless. The whites of his eyes were tinged with red, and they shimmered with a film of moisture, as if he were on the verge of tears. His ears and cheeks were flushing with a delicate, feverish pink. It had happened in minutes. "Do you see it now?" Julian asked softly. He reached out, took Liam's hand, and pressed it to his own cheek. The skin was unnaturally hot. "It's burning, isn't it?" he murmured, his voice growing husky. "But I feel cold." He told Liam they could wait longer. The rain would get heavier and so would the fever. He would soon be unable to stand. He looked at Liam, his damp eyes searching his face. "Do you believe me now?" The world Liam knew, a world governed by logic and biology, tilted on its axis. Just then, Maya's cheerful voice called out from behind them. Both men stiffened. As the twins approached, Julian instantly dropped Liam's hand and stepped back, creating a careful distance between them. He gave Liam one last complex look. A look that asked, "Now do you believe?" Then turned, opened his umbrella, and walked out into the rain without another word. Liam stood frozen, his fingers still tingling with the memory of Julian's feverish skin. "Biology," he whispered to the empty space, "is dead." A few days later, Liam cornered Julian outside the imaging room. The encounter was awkward, charged with the memory of their last conversation. Liam, taking a deep breath, fired off the questions that had been plaguing him. He asked if the reason Julian had bailed on his birthday party a month ago was because it had been raining. Julian confirmed it had been a night of moderate rain, but also reminded Liam that he had never actually promised to come. Liam asked if his solitary nature was entirely because of his condition. Julian said it was the primary reason, though he also genuinely did not require the benefits of socializing. Liam then asked about the favor he supposedly owed their other colleague. He was not expecting the answer. "She helped me purchase a plush toy," Julian said. "The pink rabbit. The one that was on the bed that night." The bluntness of the reference made Liam's ears burn. He quickly changed the subject, asking why Julian couldn't just bring a toy to the lab. Julian explained the risk of being discovered was too high, though he did keep a small one in his desk for emergencies. "Then why me?" Liam asked the question he most needed answered. "Why did you make me that offer?" "Because I don't want a repeat of that night," Julian said calmly. "And you work in the lab. Also," he added, with no change in his tone, "you feel good to hold." Before Liam could process that, Julian tried to leave, saying that for reasons he'd already explained, they should keep their distance. Liam acted on instinct, grabbing his arm to stop him. He pulled too hard, and Julian stumbled forward, bumping squarely into his chest. The collision sent a jolt of memory through both of them. "Wait," Liam said, his voice rushed. "Just listen." He took a deep breath. "If this is real, and if my presence can genuinely help, and if you are serious about collaborating on that project," he swallowed hard, "then the requirements you proposed before, I can agree to them." Their first official meeting to hash out the details was held in a deserted conference room. Julian, ever the scientist, had already drafted a document titled Rainy Day Protocol and Research Synergy Plan. He had a project proposal ready, which impressed Liam with its efficiency. Then he moved on to the more important matters. First, Liam was to download a weather app and monitor it constantly. Julian would also provide a day's notice before any rain. The arrangement would only apply on workdays. Liam, growing wary, asked for a clarification of workdays. Julian replied with just a hint of regret that it meant 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., with the addendum that on nights with thunderstorms, Liam would be required for overtime, which meant staying the night. Liam immediately vetoed. They negotiated. 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays. Thunderstorms would be discussed on a case-by-case basis. Next, the degrees of contact. Julian proposed that both light and moderate rain should warrant a full embrace, as the distinction was often blurry. Liam refused, insisting they adhere to the weather forecast's classification. Light rain meant holding hands. Moderate rain meant an embrace. Julian argued that the surface area of handholding was insufficient and he'd be better off with one of his life-size toys. Liam countered that if a hand wasn't enough, he could hold his arm. Julian began to protest that an arm wasn't enough either. Liam cut him off. Without a word, he rolled up the sleeve of his hoodie, first revealing a well-defined forearm, then continuing all the way up to his shoulder. The full, sculpted curve of his bicep and tricep was on display, a testament to discipline and vitality. He raised an eyebrow. "Is this enough?" he challenged. In anyone else's eyes, it was a display of quiet confidence. But with Julian, normal social rules didn't apply. Liam felt a strange mix of embarrassment and defiance. Julian's gaze fixed on the exposed muscle, his expression unreadable. For a long moment he was silent. Then he spoke, his voice as clinical as ever. It appears to have the potential to meet the required specifications. Liam, feeling a small surge of victory, started to roll his sleeve down. However, Julian added, looking up and meeting his eyes, "For the purposes of scientific accuracy, I'll need to conduct a tactile confirmation."